What is going on, my brothers and sisters? It's Josh here, as expected, and welcome to episode 1 of Getting Good. Today, I'll be covering the most underappreciated course in Crash Team Racing Nitro-fueled, Meteor Gorge. Despite it being one of the shortest tracks in the game, only being longer than 7 other tracks, assuming no major glitches rule set, there is more to learn here than you might initially expect. Whether it's how you take the snow sections after the patch of ice, or even the very first turn of the track, there are multiple strategies that can be used for almost every section of this course. Before we begin, I would like to give some insight on what sort of times I'm aiming to help players achieve here. I'll be showcasing and explaining 3 runs today, with the first being geared towards players seeking to beat the developer. While for some who are still learning how to beat trophy or velo times, this may seem like a big step, but I'm sure that if explained well, anyone can make it through the dev time if they know what to do here. The second run will serve the purpose of teaching players how to go beyond the dev time, and more towards Meteor Gorge's penultimate sub in no major glitches, sub 121. This is where times on the track start to get solid and improvements start to get scarce, but if strategies in this run are executed well enough, a high 120 should be within reach not too long after picking up the course. The final run I'll be showing off will be my PB, and represents the final sub of the track in a no major glitches run, sub 120. This is the point where the track starts getting very hard to optimize, and frame grind territory sets in at around a 120.2x. This is also where slight mistakes become run killers, but I'll explain that more later in the video as I feel this introduction has gone on long enough. Without further ado, let's get into the first run. For starters, in each of these runs I will be using the speed engine, as it is easily the best engine class in the game, holding literally every single world record in the no major glitches category. While the developer time can definitely be beaten with other classes, my main focus for teaching is the speed engine because it's straight up better to learn it over anything else. The developer time on Meteor Gorge is 124.78 by Francois B. Not one of the weaker developer times, but also not one I would consider to be the hardest of the bunch, as I would with some other tracks like Crash Cove, for example. To start off the run, we obviously want the starting boost, and just after you start moving forward, hop into a right drift. Make sure your first boost is a perfect, followed by a shorter good boost. This good boost will allow you to get the third boost early enough to set up for a solid line going into the first turn, as well as providing level 3 fire, which is only reached when getting either a very high good third boost or any kind of perfect third boost. Once you get the third boost, you want to jump into a left drift and proceed around the first turn, taking as tight of a line as you can while chaining 3 more boosts, preferably perfect. Now before I progress further, I'll explain what can go wrong here and how to avoid or react and correct it. The first issue is that you may not have enough time for that third boost to be perfect, and in that case, the run is over. But what you can do in the following attempt is to make your second boost closer to the bare minimum required to gain reserves, making the third boost more lenient with how much time you have to reach perfect on the meter. Or, you can instead opt to make the first boost good instead of perfect if you're really having a hard time. While the second method is slower, you still end up with level 3 fire regardless, so time loss is minimal when compared to not getting level 3 fire at all. After this, you make it to the big jump of the track. Exit the drift, followed by jumping onto the platform with the boost pad to gain the next level of fire. Now once you jump, you'll notice one of 2 possible things. Either you progressed at a normal speed and did not lose time to the developer, or you stalled a little longer than normal in the air and the ghost either caught up or overtook you. The first possibility is a best case scenario situation, and there is nothing else to say about it other than this is what you want on every lap of every run. The second possibility, though, is evidence of a mistake. If you touch the snow on the first turn too much, you'll lose speed the moment you're airborne, costing 3 frames on average or 0.09 seconds. To prevent this, you can either opt to take a wider line at the cost of speed but a boost in consistency, or listen for the distinct sound that plays when you touch the snow, letting you know that a restart may be a good idea. This sound is hard to explain, but can be described as a scraping noise or similar to the crunching of actual snow. The more you play the track though, you'll be able to tell as soon as you hear it or recognize that you lost speed at the jump. After jumping, you want to land just accelerating, followed by jumping off the pad without turning left or right unless you landed in a bad enough line where turning stops you from hitting the wall. There isn't much to talk about in regards to this specific section, as the only way to mess it up is going too far left and hitting the wall. After landing on the ice section, you want to continue forward, followed by jumping again on the small slope for another drop boost to maintain reserves. All that can go wrong here is ice physics, but if you go straight into the jump without turning, it shouldn't present any issues to you. After the jump, you'll be coming up on 2 more slopes that you want to drift around to build more reserves. 2 perfect boosts do the trick as you make it to arguably the hardest part of the track to optimize, the area with first snow and second snow. This run uses one of the 2, but I will go further in depth on how to take these areas faster in the next 2 runs. For now though, you want to jump off the second slope you just drifted on towards the right side of the snow mound, or what I call first snow. You want to remain on this snow for as little time as possible, jumping off near the exact moment you land. This preserves the majority of your speed and allows you to get further onto the wavy road than you would if you either neglected to take the first snow or spent more time on it than needed. After you jump off of first snow, you'll land into a drift fairly far into the wavy road, more often than not getting a drop boost in the process. From here you want to get 1 drift boost, either a good or a perfect depending on how far along the road you landed, followed by another jump into the area I call second snow. In this run, you can get away with staying to the road part of the mound, as it's how the developer takes this section, so no time is lost assuming you take this part well. Now, that was a lot to explain, so before I move on to the next part of the track, I want to explain what can happen here and how you can avoid any issues. For first snow, jumping very early after touching the snow can eliminate most speed loss, as I said before, and if you already jumped too late, there isn't much that can be done other than a reset if you feel your run is dead, or continuing on and remembering not to take the snow like that again on the following laps. As for the wavy road part, the main issue that can manifest is getting low air off of said road, which can be managed by jumping from one of the slopes as you drive up it to gain the most air. With this strategy though, getting a low jump isn't really a time loss as you're not taking the snowy portion of second snow, so it's not really a reset heavy area at this pace. With that covered, you then make your way towards the pipe turn, ignoring the ramp box as hitting the ramp always slows you down. Just after the box, you want to go into a right drift, chaining 3 boosts together. These preferably being perfect, but what kind of boosts you can get while still being fast will vary depending on how early or late you initiate the drift. What can go wrong here comes down to just you bonking the pipe, losing your fire, and killing the run. For this sort of pace, the solution simply boils down to resetting if you want to take it tight 3 for 3, or going wide around the pipe to make the turn infinitely more consistent. Following the pipe turn, you want to let go of your drift, driving straight over the boost pad followed by jumping across the shortcut. The first hop is very simple, just go straight at it and you're good to go. Hopping out of the shortcut on the other hand can provide some issues depending on your ability to U-turn. As you jump out of the shortcut and back onto the track, you want to U-turn left towards the wall so you take as tight of a line as possible getting back onto the track. This is a very simple part of the course, with the only issue being the chance of scraping the wall too much and losing fire. You can work around this by U-turning later after the shortcut at the cost of a few frames, but it makes the section completely free. After landing from the U-turn, you want to jump off the ramp into a left drift, staying close to the snow and chaining 2 perfect boosts together. Once you reach the last bump on the track, you jump once, landing into a right drift to both build reserves and set up for a good line going into lap 2. As for how to take lap 2, everything is exactly the same other than the start of the track. You still go for 3 boosts before the first jump, but instead of drifting around the first turn, you jump at the slope and then turn around the corner, staying close to the wall to gain time on the developer. The lower the jump you get here, the better it is for you, as it makes the turn easier to see while going into it. Other than this, both laps play out the exact same as the first one and you're well on your way to beating a developer. Now, onto the next run, which will have some key differences that really let you improve your time. The start of the track remains the same as before, 3 drift boosts into a jump, landing into another 3 boosts as you make your way to the boost pad. Once you jump towards the pad, you want to land at a left drift, but don't turn left while drifting. Next, you want to get a perfect boost as you fall off the ledge, followed by swapping directions before you land, going into a right drift to build more reserves. After you get the second boost, you jump off the slope as you did before, followed by U-turning around the corner, followed by a jump on both slopes, setting for a better line going into first snow and making sure you have enough reserves. As for first snow, you take it the same way I described earlier, with 1 jump off of it as soon as possible, landing on the wavy road section while in a left drift. Once you get your boost, you then want to jump to the left onto the snow mound. As soon as you land from the first jump, you immediately want to jump again to clear the snow mound, landing back onto the road. Once on the road, you wait for a bit, then initiate a right drift for pipe turn. We're trying to play fast here, so turn as hard as you can into the pipe to save the most time, resetting if you lose fire. As for the shortcut, you always go into it the same way, but in this case you want to aim for the left side of the platform in the shortcut as it sets up for a tighter turn when exiting the cut. Once leaving the cut, you U-turn exactly how you did before, but making an effort to go tighter than before at the risk of consistency, rather than wider at the benefit of consistency. The next section after the shortcut is the same as before, but once you jump across the gap rather than land in a drift, you want to continue going straight, followed by jumping up the final slope and turning slightly to the right in the air for a good line into lap 2, landing in a drift as you did in the previous run. As for the start of lap 2, you want to start it the same way as you did in the previous run, while making an effort to get as close to the snow as you can without touching it. Other than this, everything for laps 2 and 3 remain the same, and with some grinding, you'll be well on your way to your first 120. For the final run, there are no major changes from the previous one. The only difference being the start to lap 1 where you get 3 drift boosts before first turn, then jump into the first turn, getting a drop boost, jumping again, then going into a drift, getting 1 perfect boost before jumping onto the first boost pad section, and continuing the rest of the lap the same way the 120 lap would. The issues of hitting the snow still apply, as well as losing fire before you hit the boost pad. In both cases you will need to reset, as going for a 119 requires having very few things go wrong. Other than this, all the 119 comes down to is optimizing your driving and cutting all corners, shortcuts, and turns as fast as you can. Reserves can be hard, but if you miss no more than 1 boost per lap, the run should be good to continue. First and second snow in this case will play a huge role in your improvements if you're not taking them well, so learning them is extremely important when aiming for a mid to low 120 or the big 119. On the topic of second snow, I seem to be the only one that noticed a very rare version of the cut that's possible. I have gotten this lucky snow less than 5 times ever, and it saves 2 frames per lap over the best non-lucky cut. I apologize for not getting footage of said lucky cut, but it's too rare and just too random to grind for. I also dubbed said cut Josh Snow since naming found cuts after yourself is common, and I find it funny enough to do it myself. Now before I sign off, I'll show you my PB in its entirety, a 119.99. And with that, you have reached the end of my Meteor Gorge guide and the first episode in my Getting Good series. I hope this helped you learn something new about the course, and if it did, I ask that you leave a comment suggesting the next course you would like to have explained. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video I actually commentate on.